Listo. Thank you all for making the, sorry, go ahead.
I said I think everyone's good on mics. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're good.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you all for making the effort and taking the time to come join us here today in Dallas. All of you have reported on Abbott's power grid failure over the course of the last year. There is a new development in this story, and I wanted you all to be the first to hear about it directly from me. And so thank you for being here in person, and to those who are joining us by live stream, we're grateful for your attention as well. I want to make sure first that we're all on the same page about the facts around the power grid failure. So I've got a very short presentation, if you'll bear with me, that makes sure that we all know exactly what happened and why it happened. So as we know, Governor Abbott was warned about the vulnerability within the Texas power grid. We had a significant failure in 2011. We had another challenge in 2014. Experts across the state warned the governor that unless we weatherized and winterized the grid, including, importantly, the gas supply, that if we had severe or extreme winter weather, we would not be able to keep the lights on and the heat running and the water flowing. That's exactly what happened, but I want to call to your attention that on the eve of Abbott's power grid failure, on the 13th of February, he said, we do as a state have the ability to ensure that we do not run out of power. That's what he said right before we ran out of power. Hundreds of Texans lost their lives. I think the official state estimate is just under 300. We've seen other estimates as high as 701, over 1,000. We may never know, except we are certain that hundreds of Texans lost their lives. We also saw a new estimate actually reported by the Texas Tribune that total economic losses to the state of Texas because of the power grid failure totaled more than $300 billion. That's on top of the tens of billions of dollars in property damage claims that were filed to homeowners insurance companies across the state of Texas. People lost their lives, and the state lost out on hundreds of billions of dollars because Abbott could not keep the lights on. While Texans froze to death, energy corporations made billions of dollars. And I want to make clear that this is really important for what I'm about to tell you. They did so illegally. There is a state statute, a state law called the Deceptive Trade Practices Act, and it specifically prohibits price gouging when there is a declared disaster or emergency in the state of Texas. And specifically cited in the code is fuel. You're not allowed to charge exorbitant rates for the fuel that literally ensures that we can stay alive when there's an emergency or disaster in the state of Texas. These gas sellers made $11 billion in profits over the course of just 5 days in February. And again, I want to make clear, they did so illegally. Ron Nirenberg, who's the mayor of San Antonio, Texas, has called this the most massive wealth transfer in Texas history. Because as you all probably know, they were charging these gas company CEOs 200 times the normal price of gas when we had that extreme weather last February. It would be like if you went to the gas station and were trying to fill up your truck, you would be paying $425 per gallon. That's exactly what these companies did to the people of Texas. And Greg Abbott let them off the hook. Texas natural gas providers aren't facing weatherization requirements. That's in one news report. Another, the loophole created by the legislature and the governor allows natural gas companies to effectively pick and choose what technology and equipment they want to use to upgrade to handle the cold weather. And furthermore, there was no effort made by the governor to get the $11 billion in illegal windfall profits back for the people of Texas. And I'll show you what that did to all of us. Abbott, within the first 10 days of the post-legislative session campaign contribution open season receives $4.6 million from oil and gas and energy interests, his largest haul ever. So to connect the dots, Abbott does nothing, including failing to require the gas companies to weatherize ahead of the winter storm. The winter storm happens, it kills hundreds of people, it costs us more than $300 billion, and he requires them to do nothing and does not get those illegal profits back. They turn around and give him $4.6 million in campaign contributions within the first 10 days of the open season of political donations. For some energy experts, this is a quote from the Texas Tribune, for some energy experts, the increase in donations for the officials at the close of the session looks like a reward for not passing more stringent regulations. It's not Beto O'Rourke saying that. That is reported in the Texas Tribune. Energy Transfer Partners, Kelcy Warren's company, made $2.4 billion during those 5 days of the freeze. And this is the Houston Chronicle headline, "We froze and Abbott got paid $1 million from the billionaire profiteer of Texas's deadly storm." A $1 million campaign check with Abbott's name on it. So again, Kelcy Warren's company made extraordinary windfall profits, $2.4 billion, far more than they'd ever made, probably ever dreamed of making before. He turns around and as soon as he is able to, writes a $1 million campaign contribution check to Greg Abbott. I told you earlier I'd tell you who's going to pay for that $11 billion in illegal windfall profits. Texans are paying the price thanks to what we're calling the Abbott tax. On average, this is reported by ABC 13, residents are paying 32% more, or $45 more every month, not including any fees, to pay for last year's freeze. That's every Texas ratepayer. Texans, Bloomberg reports, will pay for decades. It's not this month, it's not just next month, it's not this year, for decades, as the crisis taxes billions of dollars onto bills. And despite losing power for days, Texans will pay higher power bills. That's from Texas Monthly. So though Texans did nothing at all to cause this, Texans are going to have to pay the price. And the people who did cause it, Energy Transfer Partners, the gas companies, Governor Abbott, and those who failed to regulate, oversee, and require weatherization, they're not paying a dime. In fact, they're getting paid, and we are having to foot the bill. Texans are paying the price thanks to the Abbott tax. When we connect the dots and follow the money, we see that Greg Abbott has put profits over people. What I've been trying to do over the course of this campaign is to talk about how we can put people over profits. And as you all know, because I had a chance to meet with many of you over the course of February, we traveled this entire state connecting the dots, telling the story, making sure people understand how we lost lives of so many in this state, why we're all paying this Abbott tax going forward, why it cost our economy $300 billion, and whose fault it was originally. And here's the Midland Reporter Telegram. O'Rourke talks 5-point plan to prevent a power crisis. Here's the Abilene Reporter News. I did this all over the state, including here in Dallas. This is the last slide. This was recently reported, everyone in this room has reported this. Former ERCOT CEO says he was following Governor Abbott's order when keeping prices at max capacity during February 2021 winter storm. And here's a Houston Chronicle sentence from one of their articles. The man in charge of the Texas grid during the 2021 blackouts has laid bare how Governor Greg Abbott imposed billions of dollars in unnecessary bills on consumers to protect his chances of getting reelected. And he is still driving up electricity prices. Everything that I've shared with you is factual and has been reported by either yourselves or your colleagues in the press here in the state of Texas. All I have done today, and all I have done over the course of the campaign, is to share these facts with the electorate that will decide the outcome of this next election. I want to make sure that there is justice for those who were killed effectively by this governor. I want to make sure that there's justice for the ratepayer who is now forced to foot the bill for these illegal windfall profits made by the gas companies and Energy Transfer Partners and others here in the state of Texas. And I want to make sure that we make this right for all involved. Now, this is what I want to share with you. This is the new development in this story. For doing this, I have been directly threatened by Kelcy Warren of Energy Transfer Partners. As I was meeting with you all over the course of February, I began to get letters from Kelcy Warren's attorney telling me that I had to back off this story. I had to stop connecting the dots or else there would be consequences. I chose not to back down. I want to make sure that I continue to fight for the people of Texas. Well, I want to tell you that in just this last week, we have now learned that he is following through on his threat, and he is going to try to take me to court, use his billions of dollars to try to shut me down and shut us up from telling the story of what happened to the people of Texas. He's trying to stop me from fighting for the people of Texas. And just as we did before, we are not backing down right now. But I want you to know that this is happening. That not only is he trying to influence the political process through the campaign donations that he's making, not only did he make illegal windfall profits off the suffering, misery, and death of our fellow Texans, he's now trying to shut us down in the courts through a frivolous lawsuit. And I wanted to make sure that you heard that directly from me here first. And with that, I want to make sure I have the chance to answer your questions. Thank you all for being here today. Chris, do you want to help us lead the conversation?
Absolutely. Thanks, Beto. We'll start with Romer at the Morning News.
I'm on pass.
Sure. Allie?
Yeah, if I could circle back, but related to this, I wanted, so has anything been filed? Kind of what are the claims that are being made? Can you elaborate a little bit on what that litigation was?
There's a lawsuit that has been filed. Of course, you all are able to read the suit, but we feel very, very good about, obviously, the facts underlying the things that I've been saying along the way, the exact same things that I just said in front of you here today. We'll continue to do that. We understand why Mr. Warren would be concerned, why Greg Abbott is concerned. As soon as the people of Texas understand the truth, they're going to want to make sure that there's accountability and consequences. We're looking forward to being able to continue to share this story, whether it's in a courtroom or whether it's in the court of public opinion. We're going to make sure that the people of Texas have the facts.
So where was the lawsuit filed and what does it require? I mean, what does it seek to do specifically?
Warren is alleging defamation in his lawsuit for telling the truth and connecting the dots between the profits he made, the contributions he's then made to Greg Abbott, and the policy that has then followed. That's the nature of it, essentially. And Chris, I'm paraphrasing, of course, a very long suit, but does that get to it? Yeah, Chris is nodding his head,
Yeah,
yes.
and where was it filed? What court?
In state court.
Here now. County or
San Saba. Yeah. Great. John Moritz?
Hey, what would you see? What would you want to seek during the discovery process from either Abbott or Kelcy Warren or anybody else? What's going to, what's going to help you, and are you going to file any kind of action against him as a countersuit?
Much the same as your interest as members of the press, I want to make sure that we get the facts and the truth. So we're very interested in the communications between Governor Abbott, the people on his staff, his appointees, including on the PUC, and the very people that they're supposed to regulate, oversee, and protect the people of Texas from. One of the slides that we laid out, in fact, it's this one, we see that the man in charge of the Texas grid is bringing some of those facts to light just over the last couple of weeks. We need more of the truth for everyone who's been harmed. When I've met with family members who've lost a loved one, a husband, a son, a family member, I ask each of them, has the governor, anybody from the state of Texas reached out to you to apologize? And the answer is always no. And add insult to injury, very often their homes have been damaged. They're going to have to repair them at their own expense. And now they're paying higher utility bills. They deserve justice and answers. And that discovery process is going to allow us to make sure that we have the facts to obtain that justice and those answers for them.
Got Jack Fink.
A couple questions. First, as it relates to the law that you cited, the Deceptive Trade Practices Act, and the fuel. Isn't that really about, during a hurricane, gas stations can't charge exorbitant fees? This is a separate system, the electricity system. They have examples, this was under the state's, I guess, system, where people can charge higher rates, this maximum rate, during an emergency. So how do you square that, number one? Number two, who is paying for your legal defense? Are you doing this? Is your campaign doing this? And if it's your campaign, does this take precious resources away from the other fight that you have, which is to try to win?
So in answer to your first question, when you read the law, it clearly says that it's fuel. And it can be fuel at the gas pump when you're trying to make sure that you can fill up your truck during a natural, or in this case, a man-made disaster or emergency. But it's also the fuel upon which we depend to power the generators that spin off the electricity that allows us to keep the lights on and the heat running in our homes and preventing our pipes from freezing. That's the law of the land. And it's not just me, and it's not just Democrats. There are also some Republicans out there who want to make sure that we get these ill-gotten, illegal profits back and return them to the ratepayer and the people of Texas, who did nothing to cause this but have borne the brunt of the consequences. As governor, I'm going to make sure that we do that. And I think you understand why the current governor has not. He's literally on the leash from these power company CEOs and other corporations who are literally paying him by the millions of dollars not to regulate their industry, weatherize their part of the grid, or return their illegal profits. To your second question, it will be the campaign and the people who donate to this campaign who will make sure that we have the resources to successfully fight this lawsuit. But this, at the end of the day, is so much a part of what the campaign is about. It's for standing up for the people of Texas, making sure that we know the truth and hold those in power accountable for what they've done, and ultimately get the change that all of us seek and deserve. And I know that I have the support of those in Texas by the hundreds of thousands who've donated to this campaign so far. I'm grateful for that.
We've got Jason.
Yeah, Congressman, a couple of questions. One to follow up to Jack's question. Can your campaign afford to do this, first of all? And secondly, have you taken any contributions from the energy industry at all?
To your second question, I don't know, honestly. And I wouldn't be surprised if we have, given how many people are employed by the energy industry here in the state of Texas. Last time I checked, Kelcy Warren has not made a contribution to our campaign. And can we afford to do this? We can't afford not to. We've got to make sure that we're defending ourselves. But the important issue for me is that we defend the people of Texas. They are the ones who've been attacked by their governor. They're the ones who've been attacked by Kelcy Warren and others. And we've got to make sure that we hold them accountable. This offers us another opportunity to do so.
And a quick follow-up as well, too. Has your attorney told you to stop saying anything, stop doing anything as this plays out?
No. We have looked at the facts exhaustively. I have personally, I'm not an attorney. Our attorneys have done that from the standpoint of the law. We are on the most solid ground possible. Everything that I just showed you is everything that I've been saying over the last few months of this campaign, certainly over the course of February when we were calling attention to this issue specifically. So much of it is just reiterating what you all have reported in the press and media here in the state of Texas, or what we've been able to find through public hearings and testimony following the Abbott grid collapse from last February.
We've got Ed, CNN.
Hey, Congressman, a couple quick things. How many of these conversations did you have with Kelcy Warren's legal team? How many, were there several warnings?
I'm trying to think. I received a couple, if not several, 2 or 3 emails threatening me, trying to stop me or push me back or shut me up. And I knew exactly why they were doing it, and I knew what the cost would be if I did. I might be out of any possible harm in a courtroom, but there would not be justice for the people of Texas. So we didn't back down. And when they filed suit, we're also not backing down. The suit is frivolous. We feel very confident about our chances to prevail in court, and I think it's another opportunity for us to share the truth with the people of Texas.
And given kind of the public's short attention span at times over various issues, are you worried that come November, that this issue, where at that point we'd be almost 2 years away from the winter freeze, how concerned are you that this might be an issue that doesn't necessarily resonate the same way come October, November later this year?
It certainly resonates for those who've lost a loved one, right? The wife whose husband, Vietnam-era veteran, went out to his truck to go charge his oxygen tank, and they found him dead of hypothermia. The 11-year-old boy who died in Conroe, Texas. The hundreds of others who froze to death or burned to death in their homes as they built fires to try to keep themselves warm, or died of carbon monoxide poisoning as they ran the engine in their car in the garage, doing whatever they could to try to stay alive, and ended up dying in the process. This is very much going to be on their minds, and it should be on all of our minds. But every single Texan, every single month, will open that utility bill, and they will see, as it was reported in the press here in Texas, that it is anywhere from 40 to 60, and by some estimates, on average, even higher each month versus what it was this same month last year. And it won't just be for this current moment or this current year, it'll be for the next 20 plus years as Abbott forces the ratepayers in Texas to foot the bill. That's why we call it the Abbott tax. And I'm going to make sure that every ratepayer in the state of Texas knows that. And so they will be reminded every single month, including in October of 2022 when early voting starts, including in November of 2022 when we have Election Day.
What is the ultimate goal as far as, the ratepayers and making sure they're made whole? So if this is all going to end up in court, let's just say, and, the states, you would go, let's say you're governor, and you would go after these companies to try to repay. And ultimately, who knows what happens, but how do you make the citizens of Texas whole? How do you make ratepayers whole, given the reality that you're facing right now, that everybody's facing right now? It happened. How do you make that, how do you make your goal happen?
We go after those who made these illegal profits and harmed the people of Texas. You look at Brazos Electric. They took on $2 billion in debt rather than allow their customers to freeze. They're now in bankruptcy proceedings right now. The ratepayer to Brazos Electric shouldn't be footing that bill. It should be Energy Transfer Partners and others who made these illegal profits. As governor, I'm going to get that money back. And through the legal process, I'm going to seek double, treble damages if we can. I'm going to make sure that we truly make the ratepayer in the state of Texas whole. And I'm also going to make sure that we do justice to those whose family members lost their lives, or to those who lost property through property damage. I've visited with countless Texans, including in Southeast Texas, whose homes were damaged and flooded during Harvey in 2017, and then whose homes were flooded and damaged again due to Abbott's grid failure in 2021. I want to make sure that they are whole as well. That's justice, and that's what we owe one another. And it's not for Democrats or Republicans, it's for any Texan who was harmed in this. We certainly don't want Texans footing the bill and paying that higher Abbott tax every month. And as governor, I'm going to make sure that we do what it takes to right that.
Can you make public those emails that you referenced where you were threatened by agents for Kelcy himself?
Yeah, let me through due diligence, talk to my attorney, make sure that's okay, and then be very happy if they say it's all right to share that with you all.
You think that'll happen today?
We'll try. We'll try.
Is the lawsuit definitely filed already?
Yes.
Do you know?
Yes,
Oh, it is?
I think so.
So you guys-
You're talking to a bunch of non-attorneys here right now, but yes, it is. So you all, it should be a matter of public
You've
record.
not been served on it.
they attempted to serve me. They then reached out to our attorneys, and I think that's how we were noticed.
Congressman, what do you expect this to cost the campaign when you're going against a plaintiff who has deep pockets and can drag this out for as long as he wants?
I honestly don't think it's going to cost us a lot because the lawsuit is so frivolous. I think any judge in the state of Texas is going to see that. The facts are clearly supporting the connections that I've just made with everyone here today. I think we also understand why this lawsuit has been filed. Very often you see billionaires file suit in order to protect their profits and to prevent anyone from holding them accountable for how they wield that money and use their power, including in Kelcy Warren's case, where he has used his access to Greg Abbott and done it through these political contributions. So we want to make sure that people are held accountable. We cannot back down, even if we're threatened in a lawsuit like this one.
I did have one other question just about this graphic right here. When you go back and read what Bill Magnus said during this bankruptcy hearing, this lawsuit and all that, he said that he was told that the governor wanted to make sure, do everything he can to keep the lights on. What's wrong with that statement? The governor, of course, his campaign disputes mentioning price at all. And so I'm wondering, what would the alternative have been if it wasn't to keep the lights on, as his campaign says, Abbott?
You could maybe logically say that raising prices would induce the market to generate more capacity. The problem was, as the governor, as ERCOT, as everyone else knew, there was no more capacity to be generated. We're not connected to any other part of the nation's grid. There's no power to draw down. So what Greg Abbott did, and this was the corrupt deal that I'm trying to call everyone's attention to, is he gave Kelcy Warren and others free license to charge as much as they wanted to. It's like having a gun pointed to the head of the electricity utility and saying, pay 200 times more than we agreed on originally, or else all of your customers are going to freeze. And thank God for Brazos Electric and others who were willing to do the right thing, even though it was morally wrong what they were forced to do by the governor and Kelcy Warren, and kept their customers alive by taking $2 million in debt in order to keep the lights on going forward. So again, just quoting from these headlines, ERCOT CEO says he was following Abbott's orders when keeping prices at max cap. And then the detail on this, that same person says Greg Abbott imposed billions of dollars in unnecessary bills. That's critical, unnecessary bills on consumers to protect his chances of getting reelected. He was clearly looking out for the energy companies and the CEOs and his political donors instead of the people of Texas. And the consequence fell to the people of Texas in the lives lost, in the property damage, in the $300 billion to the negative to our economy, and now the fact that we're each paying that Abbott tax each and every single month until we make a change in that office.
We've got time for one more. Ron?
Yeah.
Earlier you said that Abbott effectively killed Texas residents. Do you believe that?
I do, absolutely. Those 700 to 1,000 to maybe more Texans would still be alive if Greg Abbott had listened to those who said that the grid was vulnerable, that we needed to weatherize every part of the grid, including the gas supply, no matter what it cost his donors to do that. And Greg Abbott chose his donors and political contributors over the people of Texas, and the people of Texas paid the price.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all for coming out today. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks to everybody on the live stream.
And you support Texas joining the rest of the nation, the national grid?
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. We also need to have an independent market monitor. We have one, as you probably know, for electricity. We don't have one for gas. An independent market monitor could have prevented some of the price gouging that we saw in 2021.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you all. I'm just going to grab this copy behind you.
Hey, Chris, do you have a copy of the suit?
We can check. Yep.
Thank you.
Maybe send folks.
Maybe you could email that to everybody.
Yeah, send some.